DK Metcalf gets put on the trade block last week by the Seattle Seahawks, connected to several teams over the last, call it 4 or 5 days, LA Chargers being the big one. It sounded like someone had also floated that he wanted to play in Houston. And then it comes out today that he wants to play in a warm weather city with a team with a quarterback and also wants to get paid $30 million a year. I then tweet out a picture of like a beach and say Foxboro, Massachusetts, and get a couple of ha-has on the Bird app. But long story short, it felt like that was the thing that DK wanted. I thought
it was a picture of you in your vacation home.
Yeah, it should have been. But nonetheless, DK gets traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a second-round pick and then signs a 5-year, $150 million contract extension with the team. Now, this one bothers me. I think, yes, DK is not a true...
Jonathan Jones, really quick. Jonathan Jones is hitting the market officially per Karen Gregian.
Okay. That is definitely...
expected,
correct.
But at least now have the news on it. We don't have to go that deep into it.
Yeah, that's something that when and if he signs elsewhere, we'll definitely hit tomorrow when we get into our free agency show tomorrow. But so yeah, DK doesn't get traded to the Patriots. I know that Daniel Jeremiah had floated on Friday too that he sounded like everybody in the league thought DK was going to come to the Pats because of the money and because of the assets they had.
What did I say?
That everybody just says
I said,
things.
what is DK saying?
Oh, yeah.
Really care what the league was saying.
That's
what is DK saying and where are we going to end up?
But did what DK said matter in this? It doesn't seem like it because he got sent to Pittsburgh.
Well, that's why
with a team without a quarterback.
I don't think the league even and not even won the league in that sense, but also I think people underestimate the level of this that we'll probably touch more on.
Yeah.
But what does it mean if you are paying DK 5 years, $150 million? We'll get into it, but that's why when it was said, I was just like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
And I get that too, but I look at it, I'm like, if DK had a say, I don't think he would be going to Pittsburgh. And so it sounds like this was the best offer that Seattle got, which his asking price, according to Diana Rossini, his list was a team with a quarterback, a warm weather city, and $30 million on the market. He got one of those in the trade.
I mean, I think we all knew. If you even looked at his options, you knew that he wasn't going to get all of that. Every option he talked about, LA
has a quarterback, oodles of cap space, and a warm weather city. That's the one. And maybe Houston.
Do they have a lot of cap space?
They have a ton of cap space. I think they're second behind the Patriots.
My bad. No,
you're fine.
But
LA's the one spot. Everywhere else was iffy.
Exactly. And it's like, okay, if you like LA so much, why are we not hearing more about LA? You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes it feels like you start hearing momentum. If that was your perfect fit, then go to LA. I was like, I think it's going to be what it always is with Myles Garrett today. Money is what it's ultimately about. What I will say, I'll just come out with it. I like that the Patriots aren't desperate. Like, yes,
but they have to be desperate. They're not good.
I understand, but not for a guy like Metcalf, where he's someone who does have red flags. Even Ayuk is someone where I'm kind of iffy. Like I'm someone who's saying I will throw a bag at Chris Godwin if he wants not 30 million, but even for Godwin, like if it got to 30 million,
but he also has red flags with the injuries.
Like I think that I understand Drake may needs weapons, but like you have the quarterback. You really need him to have a number one. Get Tet if you want somebody like that. Like there's other options than giving DK Metcalf 5 years, not 3. 390 I would find more palatable. 5 years, so this is basically a 3-year deal. Like I don't love that, honestly, especially because you don't know if you're gonna get Godwin. You don't know if you're going to get a Darius Slayton, like the adult in the room. If you end up with DK and some, like a Josh Palmer, where sure, he may be like a good leader and a professional, but he's also not going to be the kind of guy where it's like, oh, he's done it before. He's had a 1,000-yard season. We got to listen to him. It's kind of like Kendrick Bourne. You love him, but you also, he hasn't hit that high where you just inherently respect him as a pro and as an accomplished veteran in the same way. And I wanted to talk myself into DK, and he is productive, but for 5 years, 150 million, I'm cool with him passing.
I am so me and you don't fully disagree on a lot. I am totally, I don't want to say I totally disagree with you because I hear what you're saying. On my end, though, to be able to send the 38th pick to Seattle for the opportunity to sign a relatively top flight wide receiver in DK Metcalf to a $30 million contract extension per year, I'm for that. They have nothing. They have cap space. They only would have to send 38 for DK Metcalf, a pick that they should have spent on him 4 or 5 years ago. Now, I know it's 5 years later and it's different. I have a hard time of them not being desperate. Like you said, I find it hard to make excuses for them not doing everything they can to get a wide receiver when this was the only asking price. Like, it's not like they sent the first and the third and signed him to even 35 million. It's like, and it's not like it was this and it was LA where you knew you were losing out because they had the quarterback and they had the warm weather. This is Pittsburgh with Justin Fields and a $30 million contract to go play in the Steel City. Like, I'm sorry. I just think that if that was the asking price and they got outbid for that and Seattle was just going to send him wherever they wanted to, because clearly it looks like they did, I just think that's weak on them. And if they weren't in it for this type of price, I think they should have been in on it, and it's disappointing to me.
One thing I'll say is I would even have been more okay with this contract if they already had Godwin in-house. I'll say that. I would still be like, this doesn't make me feel comfortable, and I don't love it. But again, if they had like Godwin 3 or 4 year contract, like, all right, they balance each other out. Even if DK has his thing, Godwin will be like, yo, like, you know, he'll keep it copacetic. I will say that. I think it's timing as well. Like, if they were like, yo, Patriots were making this move right now, and they were like, I don't know, I can't have him be. And I understand it's not going to be a popular opinion. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But also, like, look at where DK no, I'm not even going to get into that. I don't want to nitpick because he's really good at something that's hard to do in the NFL, which is be a good deep threat. I just, again, man, for the contract length, for the money, I just don't love DK. If AJ Brown shakes free again, like, still, my thing is be active on the trade market and throw almost anything that Chris Godwin wants at him. That's my thing. Like, if you have Slayton and Godwin, that's fine. That's fine. You have.
I want more than fine, though.
I understand that, but okay, then in the future, draft like it. In next year, the first round, if you have a heavy receiver, like, people are thinking too short term. Yes, you should be aggressive in getting guys, but I'm sure they were aggressive, but I think there's a level where 4-year situation, sometimes it's just foolish. And I wouldn't even say it was foolish. I would just say it's a risk I wouldn't be comfortable taking. But again, it's what they continue to do. If we go into the season and it's Chris Godwin, but he's not playing for half the year, and everybody else and nothing's changed, yeah, I'm going to be upset.
Then you can look back and say, why didn't you throw a 38 for DK?
Exactly, but this is a live podcast right after the fact. I'm just saying, for this money, I'm cool with not DK. For someone who has like been racking, I feel annoyed.
He does rack him up though. He was an All-Pro before.
Ejected from games. He's been a storyline.
So are so many wide receivers though. So many wide receivers.
But he is not AJ Brown. He's not like, who else do we talk about like this? Like Tyreek Hill has been the best receiver in the NFL. AJ Brown has been the best receiver in the NFL. Like, guys who do what DK does and get away with it have been the best receiver in the NFL. DK has never even been in the top 3 or 5 conversation. He hasn't. You can't back it up with both tape. And again, the flashes are so high. But if you're going to be fair, you need to bring in, yes, this is why he's been great, but also like the weird concentration drops and the times where he like hits a guy in the face because he's mad for something that he started. Like, that's what I'm saying. I love the skill set, but like for this guy who's setting the standard in your room, like we got on KJ Osborne for tweeting that he wasn't supposed to play in a game. What do you think happens if they've lost 3 out of their first 5 games and DK's throwing tantrums on the field?
Oh, it would have been toxic. But if he's producing, then I don't think that's a worthy critique of him, which I think he would.
And that's always the balance you strike. And that is always the balance you strike. And that's where I understand people are going to completely disagree. And I don't think I'm right. I'm just saying I wouldn't have been comfortable with it.
I look at the 5 years versus 3 years, and I see a 27-year-old wide receiver who would be 32 at the end of the deal, and that's no problem for me. And I get wanting 3 instead of 5 for more eventual flexibility when you have to gonna pay Drake May and things like that. But I also wonder if you do bring DK Metcalf here and you do make this trade, does that make Chris Godwin more enticed to sign here? Because, okay, now I can work off this guy and we can have a better wide receiver room and we can win games more too. Like that, bringing in a guy that has this type of skill set and is that good and would be one of your better players, also helps your team become more of a desirable destination.
I think that's fair. I do. And that's why I do think that, like, Ronnie Stanley, I think that's a big loss, because I don't
100%.
think Cam Robinson or Dan Moore moves the needle enough for you to be like, look what we're building here. Chris Godwin is a step in that direction, but like offensively and even defensively without Sherwood, I think it hurts. Like, I do not think they now can make that move in a way that I'm very comfortable with. But I will say, we talk about DK. Like, this is why I say I don't want them to be desperate. Because, okay, what if they draft Tet? What if they trade back and they get Tet and they have Tet and Godwin? They don't win in the exact same ways. But when you talk about DK, what do you talk about? He's a deep threat and he makes some crazy catches, right? And he's a
contested catch guy, physical, that type of guy. Yeah.
Tet gives you, no, he does not have the same speed. He gives you more elusiveness after the catch. He gives you a more diverse route tree. He gives you, I would say, I don't know if it's as much alignment versatility, because like, it's kind of the same where DK shouldn't be lined up inside all the time and he's better outside. Tet's better on the inside, but he can play outside. He's just not best there. But like, for a guy who's on a rookie deal, who you know is a good kid, he's smart, he wants to grow with the young quarterback, and he can't say shit about coming to Massachusetts because he's going to get drafted here and he has to come here regardless. And I'm not saying like Pittsburgh exactly is like the most ideal place to be, but like they have Tomlin too. Tomlin is in the playoffs every year. Like, it's not exactly the same situation, but either way, I'm just saying, if you want a wide receiver so badly, even if it's at 4, I'd rather take Tet, who gives.
I was going to say, so you'd rather them draft Tet at 4 than have made this trade?
Yeah.
Oh man.
If you also get like Cam Robinson or Dan Moore, and then your second round pick is a tackle, hell yeah. Also, like,
I just think you take the proven guy. You just take the guy who's proved to play good football before.
You will not find a single scouting report on Tet McMillan that says he is not going to be a Pro Bowl receiver or does not have Pro Bowl upside.
Okay, but that's still working off potential.
Yes, but we know what DK Metcalf is, and what DK Metcalf is a distraction and an inconsistent player. Yes, he's productive. Yes, he's
48 touchdown, very productive. He's been very productive ever since he's been in the league.
Yeah, but I'd rather spend all this resources another time for another player. Drake May is in his second season. I want him to get a great offensive line, and as much as I want the good receivers, DK Metcalf is not going to be the reason that Drake May doesn't reach the next level. I'm sorry. There's going to be somebody else.
He can certainly be a reason that helps him get there.
Sure. Yeah, 100%. But I
don't think it's fun when we disagree. This is spicy. Pat's Daily. It's fun.
Like, people, like, okay, everyone wants to talk about what DK does well, and yes, he absolutely does a lot well, but I'm just saying, like, I don't think Drake is so dependent on, like, and I can't even really call DK a go-to necessarily, because, again, he's not consistent enough to be a go-to. And he has absolute strengths, and again, I'm not saying he's a bad player at all. I think the Patriots can find really good production elsewhere. I think this is the production they'll get from DK somewhere else.
This has become a pretty polarizing thing, especially now that we have numbers and draft trade compensation on him, because I think everybody would want them to have made the deal, and we would have talked ourselves into it if they didn't, and then vice versa now that they haven't. I think ultimately you just hope, like you said, if they do nothing else at the position, then you can look back on this and say, well, if you weren't going to do anything else, take a dart throw somewhere else. So there's still more things to happen. We still have tomorrow, noontime, opens the negotiation period. So hopefully, they do end up throwing a bag at Chris Godwin, or they do, maybe or go get Darius Slayton or somebody like that. But for right now, it feels like a miss, at least in my opinion.
Okay, so Ayuk should be part of this equation.
Okay.
What if you get Ayuk at a cheaper contract for a 3rd round pick? He's younger. He is a more even, like, yes, he blew out his ACL and MCL. If he has a Chris Godwin type bounce back, right? Chris Godwin was, I think, he was about the same age, I think, when it actually happened to him. So if he has a Chris Godwin type bounce back where he does get some of his explosiveness back after a year or two, you're first off talking about one of the best route runners in the NFL, one of the most savvy players, I'd say, after the catch and at the catch point. Like, I would take Ayuk, who, yes, he absolutely comes with his own issues as well, but it's not going to be at that insane contract because, again, ideally San Francisco would have to fork up something for him. It's not at the same capital, and it's a guy who can still make Pro Bowls and be, an all-pro if he's healthy. I would find someone like Ayuk more palatable than DK for 5 years, $150 million. Like, this is not nothing. This is a big contract.
And
he's never been a number one receiver. Like he's not. It's always been like the balance of
him
Metcalf
and Lockett and him
right?
and then they had and JSN last year as well. So no, there's always been a guy there. I don't disagree with that.
Like Ayuk was the one where it's like, oh, if you take Ayuk out of the 49ers offense, like they might kind of be screwed. And what happened when Ayuk got hurt?
Well, they also ended up losing everybody at the same time. So that was
but it's like less impact from Ayuk was very noticeable. And it's always those Shanahan offenses need the X receiver who can win those one-on-one matchups.
Right.
However you deploy it. Ayuk was that guy in a long line of guys where it was Julio Jones before him. I think it was Pierre Garçon before that. Like that's all I'm saying is like, you could even talk about Ayuk, and if they get him next week, you really think people are going to be mad that he's not DK Metcalf? I don't.
I agree with that. I would reserve the opinion on DK if they do end up going and getting Brandon Ayuk. Now he signed
also T Higgins is still an option.
T Higgins is still an option, I think too. That's something we can actually throw up here from the chat too. With a super chat, Tim, we appreciate it. But Tim says all good receivers coming off the board. Any chance we think Higgins again? That is something that, he hasn't signed an extension yet. He is just straight up on the franchise tag. I wonder if they're waiting on a Trey Hendrickson deal, then they can kind of free up some money and move something around. But as of right now, I think he's still very much for the taking. And again, I would pull back my DK take right now if they go trade for T Higgins and sign him to a 5-year, $150 million contract extension. On IU quickly before I get thoughts on Higgins, and then we move forward into what tomorrow could bring. Ayuk signed a 4-year, $120 million deal with San Francisco last year. So he's making 30 per for the next 3 years, just like DK would be, except for 5 years. So, but same AAV. Would you do it if San Francisco wasn't going to eat up any cash? Would you pay Ayuk for $30 million?
I give a fourth if they're not going to eat any cash.
What if it was a 3?
No.
Okay.
I don't even think this deal would consider the Patriots paying all of it. Because I think they understand what a huge risk it is, regardless of the compensation. Like, if Ayuk is literally never the same and loses, and I think this is highly unlikely, obviously, but they could end up on the books for somebody who is never the same player. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think it's too much of a risk. They're paying something. And I think the difference is, are we going to pay a lot of it or like a significant amount, almost half-ish, and then we get a higher third-round pick? Or is it going to be we get the second, third-round pick and you pay for more? I think that's what it comes down to. And
I do wonder if he has a change of heart, because he was in the same boat last year of a Calvin Ridley that they didn't really want to play in New England. And that's the hard part of this whole conversation. Nobody wants to freaking play here. We talked about it with Giardi on Wednesday.
DK, if he wanted to play here, I'm sorry I cut you off. I'm buzzing, but if he wanted to play here, I'd feel totally differently. The guy literally made fun of the idea of even coming here.
He did say it was a good organization. He did say it was a good organization.
Good organization, but he made fun of like the whole of even like the environment. And I know that's not the end all be all, but like if you're gonna pay that much money, again with Ayuk, at least you're not paying the same amount of money. He probably doesn't have a lot of options because he's coming off an injury. So it's very different from DK, who had his probably say in where he wanted to go. I'm sure this ultimately just came down to money. I don't think he had no say, because I think John Snyder is a guy who tries to accommodate his players as much as he can. Sure. But yeah, like this whole situation, I didn't feel good about it as much as I tried to talk myself into it. Go on my timeline. I tried. I put up the deep wins. I talked about why he would fit. I couldn't. And yes, I'll be wrong if they don't do anything. I'm not even wrong because I said whatever. Let me stop talking.
Well, that's okay. Me and Taylor are going to agree to disagree and wrap up the DK segment. I would have done it. I think it was worth the money. They have it. Taylor says, and there's no reason to, it's backed up with different opinions, but didn't want them to do it. At any rate, DK Metcalf goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a second-round pick and signs a whopping 5-year, $150 million contract extension. We do have a new member in the chat, Zach. We appreciate it. We have a new premium subscription service here at Patriots Press Pass, and we're going to tell you about that right now. We'll play a quick video to show you what you could see if you do end up signing up. Then we'll tell you about the tiers, and then we'll wrap up this show looking forward as to what we can expect from the Patriots from this free agency. So this is what one segment, just a quick hitter, what it could look like if you do end up signing up. So here's a look.
Over the past half decade, the Patriots have had one of the worst wide receiving cores in the entire NFL. Since Julian Edelman was able to catch 100 balls for over 1,100 yards back in 2019, the Patriots wide receivers have combined for the fewest yards per reception, the fewest receiving touchdowns, and they're tied for the second most fumbles lost. Now this offseason, with Mike Vrabel at head coach and Drake May seeming to be the future at quarterback, the Patriots seem like they could spend their over $120 million in cap space and finally address the wide receiver position. However, there is one potential name that's set to hit the free agent market who could fit a lot of needs the Patriots have in their wide receiver room. While he may not be the hero that New England deserves, he is absolutely the hero it needs right now. Longtime Buccaneers wide receiver Chris Godwin is set to hit the market and be the top free agent wide receiver available. Now, he's getting up there in age as he's going to be 29 years old, but he's not going to turn 30 until February. Now, last season, Drake May lacked a go-to wide receiver who we could rely on in critical situations and when plays broke down. But these types of plays are all over Chris Godwin's tape, and they have been for a very long time. Take this 3rd and 7 from the season opener against Washington. Godwin's initial route actually brings him into coverage, but he sees Baker Mayfield in trouble, works towards space over the middle, and gives his quarterback a target to move the chain. If you want to see the rest of my in-depth film review on Chris Godwin, make sure to become a premium member of our Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel. Those who subscribe for the All-Pro or GOAT tiers have access to all my film review breakdowns throughout free agency and the NFL draft.
So that's what it looks like, Taylor. Thank you for the sneak peek. Now, that was just a minute 30 clip of, I think, an 8-minute video that you were able to put together, Taylor.
Oh, no, I just show up and look pretty.
That's fair. Taylor did the work, then Ahmed did the real work, spent plenty of time detailing that and getting it out. So if you want to check it out, head over to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube membership. There are 3 tiers: rookie, starter, all-pro, and GOAT status. We'll have a ton of good stuff coming up on the channel. So if you want to join, please check it out. We appreciate it. You get all those custom emojis. You can make fun of us. You can really get in on the action here on Press Pass.